Alright fellas, so in this video I want to talk a little bit about developers and publishers. It doesn't seem to matter wherever you go, may it be Discord, Reddit, forums, Twitter, whatever. There's going to be a lot of people talking about publishers as if they were the developers. Which even game journalists don't seem to know the difference, as we had that interview now with Roxx and Gamerant, and yeah, they talked to her as if she was on a development team. And I know this has been like a common discord in the gaming sphere about like journalists just not understanding gaming that well. Usually directed at Kotaku, but this video isn't really to like spread hate or shit on journalists. This is more to spread information, kind of more of awareness and just general understanding. A big part of my channel is spreading knowledge and experience, and I want to have this talk as somebody who has experience 7 years or so in the publishing side on AAA companies. Someone who has worked with about 5 different developers, with one of the companies I have worked with being over in China, Tencent. So back on topic. Gamerant had an interview with Roxx about Lost Ark with the launch of Season 4. As you probably know, Roxx is the senior community manager of Lost Ark in the West from AGS. AGS being the publisher and Smilegate being the developer. And overall, it wasn't like a bad interview by any means, but then she got asked when developing mechanics specifically, which then led to Roxx kind of just giving 2 brief kind of overviews on workflow styles. From my experience, even in a situation when a developer and publisher is the exact same company, they still are separate teams working apart from one another. So like one AAA example would be Activision Blizzard. They own Treyarch Studios. Treyarch will work on the builds and then they will send it over to Activision. Activision Publishing will then check the build, put in bugs, check quality, make sure functionality works. They will pretty much never interact with the code. The developer will generally give clear instructions on what is complete, what is open to be looked at, what is open to be bugged, and what is the concern of the build. When it is a live game, generally it's going to be here's the build, here's the DLC, here's whatever the update is. Check the update, but also check major functionality of things that already exist. Make sure the new stuff didn't break old stuff. Which I haven't worked on an MMO, but that absolutely sounds like hell, doing checks on all the old content, which I assume turns into very general checks. But as far as publishing power goes, they generally don't get to say much input. Like if the game is in early development, they might give out surveys to people on the publishing side, letting them give some feedback on the game and kind of seeing where early opinions are going. Now the good news is there does seem to be some pretty good communication and connections between AGS and Smilegate, as AGS employees will go over to Korea to talk to Smilegate about things, and they have been getting a decent amount of our feedback, and we've seen some of these changes go into effect. But that's generally how things go. Like players and the publishers will give feedback over that will eventually go to the developers. Developers will decide if that is right for them, if that is within their vision, if they want to change it or not. And then they will make the build, send it over to publishing. Publishing will check it, and then it goes over here onto live. So generally the only thing that is in AGS's control is, hey, is everything working? If it's not, let us know. But that is not universally true, as we see Tencent has the ability to make changes to their client. This is obviously something that was brought up probably within their contract, but even then they tried to implement damage meter. I think they actually did put it in, but then Smilegate said, hey, that's a little too far, that's not in our vision, get rid of it. That is of course what I'm hearing in my comment section. I don't really know for sure. I haven't really been keeping up with China. I don't even know their website, so that part is kind of a word of mouth, trust me bro, for real. But given our history of the game and just that we're getting changes from China and also from the KR client, that we don't really have that kind of power and wiggle room, at least so far in AGS in the Western version of Lost Ark. Which I actually have worked with Tencent in the past, like I mentioned earlier, and yeah, they didn't care about anything we said. The closest thing that our studio ever got to giving them feedback was basically if our testers felt like something was a bug or didn't work right and just we didn't know because we didn't really get much information from them. They would put in a bug report for it, and then in the worst case scenario, they would send it back as NAB, which is not a bug. And then if there was too many bugs that went in kind of in a similar sense that were all NAB, they would actually just directly message us and say, hey, stop doing that. So from my experience and just overall knowledge of the gaming industry, I just really don't see it that much of a possibility that AGS has that much impact on the builds, development, or even much word on it. I really do think it is just a matter of feedback, giving it to Smilegate, and then they decide how they want to move forward. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they got the receipts. Maybe Hardcore Henry put in something in the game. But if I had to put my money on it, I would say he's probably not on the development team in Smilegate. So from my experience and how I've seen things, let's look at elixirs. You can't really blame AGS for elixirs. They can only give it the feedback on it, but overall the design about elixirs, that is all Smilegate. Again, AGS can really only give the feedback, and then Smilegate decides what to do from there. However, what you can blame AGS for most likely is going to be like just myriad of bugs that we have been having. I've said this before, but it seems like there's just zero QA when it comes to our build. For the first quest and the MSQ to not work on day 1 of tier 4 is absolutely nuts. Like after booting the game, that should be check 1 when you get new content. And then another very common check in QA, something that is very vital in QA, is actually things like invite systems and party systems. It might be weird for a lot of people to think that, hey man, how did people find out this thing with a stronghold? But really something like that is like a priority 1 check generally by a lot of companies. Now that might not be as true in the MMO space. That is generally a high priority check in AAA gaming because you're usually dealing with PSN, Xbox Live, Steam, whatever, because you're interacting with their platform. But still something like that, thinking about QA, really should be pretty high in the priority to check. So it is still like really surprising to see something like that get by. But it seems like there just is no QA over there in AGS, and if they do have a QA, they literally just checked that the game booted. They didn't even try to run through the MSQ. And I know this seems a little bit rough, which is why I want to say that as somebody who has worked in publishing, I really do think they get like the most shit from everybody. They generally do overwork them, and then also the topic here, the consumers, they often just blame the publishers too. So I really want to say that like also just do give them a little bit of slack, even if it is a publisher related issue. You know, mistakes happen. I'll give you one story about my experience on publishing, as which it was a post-launch DLC. It was experiencing fatal crashes. I was in office that day for 22 hours. I was back the next day 6 hours later. I was on publishing side, so that meant that we had to check the build, confirm that the bug still exists or not, and if it does, check it on all platforms, and then, you know, update the bug. From there, it was up to the developer to fix the build, send it back, our QA to check it, and then see if it happens again. And that DLC was supposed to go live the next day. It was absolutely miserable. And when Lost Ark gets extended maintenance, this is probably the same situation, except for it's even worse because now they're dealing with a Korean developer across the globe on a different time zone. So when they push the build, they find a bug, they take the build down, they had to contact Smilegate, Smilegate has to fix it, they had to send it, they had to test it, and then decide if they need a new build or if it's fine to go live. So I really just wanted to take this opportunity to inform and educate from my experience and understanding of the industry. While I don't think it's up to the consumer to really know how this works, I do believe that with more knowledge that we can have better conversations about gaming. And that this blurring of the line between developer and publisher is ultimately just really bad for the industry, and it really comes down to a lot of abuse, misdirected abuse to the publisher. But as we've talked about, they definitely do have their own faults. But there is a clear division of work, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So thanks for watching, I'll catch you next video.